Many people falsely believe that sightings of UFOs and alien activity has only spawned in the modern era due to science fiction movies and other similar popular cultural references in the mainstream. This is far from the truth, as ancient accounts of alien activity and unidentified flying objects exist all throughout history. To help build up the solid case of extraterrestrial intervention, today we will be visiting 8 UFO sightings from early history that predate the modern era. Ancient Sumerian gods. The ancient Sumerian civilization is regarded as perhaps one of the oldest civilizations of humanity and could very well have been among one of the first. Many of the oldest recovered documents and tablets in the world come from ancient Sumerian account, which makes it not at all surprising that so many witness accounts exist from this time that go in vast detail of their mythologies and religions. One most notable account being their encounter with the gods of their times. The ancient Sumerian gods were described as being large, intelligent beings that looked similar to man, with the capability of flying through the skies on large metal dragons that would breathe out fire as they ascended. In fact, the name of these gods are referred to as the Anunnaki, and their translation of the word literally means people from the stars. Could this be the first ever written witness account of an alien encounter and extraterrestrial intervention? Many ancient astronaut theorists also seem to believe so, as numerous artifacts are uncovered from ancient Sumerian sites that depict people in what appear to be astronaut suits with face masks and oxygen canisters. The accounts of Odorous Siculus Timoleon. Later becoming a renowned writer of history, Odorous Siculus Timoleon would give witness accounts during 333 BC of what he described as torches traversing through the night sky around him. As Timoleon began his travels from Corinth to Sicily, recovered from his volumes of writings, several bright lamps that he referred to as lampas began to help him and acted as a guide for his journey. He would later describe angels, or rather beings that were not human, as having come from these lights in the night sky to give him insight to his future as messengers of heaven, claiming that bore him the message that he will be remembered and that his fame and glory will persevere through the coming ages. All the more interesting, these lights didn't diminish over time, but rather stayed in the sky and followed Timoleon as he ventured and did not seem to disappear until he arrived safely on the shores of his home. Though many historians believe the writer to be referring to comets and stars, Timoleon, being an educated man, was more than familiar with natural phenomenon, and the rest of the writings carried no exaggerations or any misinformations, leading many alien enthusiasts to believe this was one of the first acts of aliens aiding humanity in its coming time. Enochs Ascension. Nothing is more peculiar than the first-person witness account of Enoch, who had supposedly walked with God among the heavens for over 300 years. In Enoch's account of meeting with the angels of heaven, he refers to the event similar to that of an alien abduction. He speaks of ascending into what appeared to be a cloud floating above him after a tornado of light wrapped around him, and he began to float upwards. After entering the cloud, he refers to smokeless fire, which sounds similar to that of electricity, and large crystals and light emanating from the crystals that sound more similar to buttons and glowing signal lights. After meeting the inhabitants of the clouds that referred to themselves as the Watchers, these beings began showing Enoch the sun that was described as being of eternal fire that never extinguishes, and of other celestial bodies such as faraway planets that also were inhabited by humans, and black holes that were an abyss with no end, breathing in massively large balls of fire. Not only this, but after Enoch had spent a week travelling among the stars, when he returned to his world, he had discovered over 300 years had passed, which led him to believe that perhaps time acted differently in heaven. The Tiki of the Polynesian Islands. Surviving statues of the Tiki, referred to by the Polynesian islands and ancient cultures that had once inhabited the region that was completely isolated from the rest of the world, depict small 3-foot-tall beings wearing large goggles over their eyes and possessing great powers. One of these ancient Polynesian accounts speak of a large female creature that appeared to be similar to that of a turtle in design, floating down from the sky and giving birth to the Tiki as they exited from her. This account sounds similar to that of an unidentified flying object resting on the ground and opening up to reveal alien inhabitants. This would make sense as the Tiki are described as being short in stature, possessing large bulbous heads, small mouths, and large black eyes similar to what is described in modern-day UFO sightings and grey aliens. What is even more terrifying of this account is the fact that the Tiki are not referred to as gods, but are also not seen to be human, as well as leaving their origin to be that of the sky and having descended from the stars. 3 Moons Sighting. Probably one of the most startling sightings on this list is referred to as the 3 Moons sighting. During 122 BC, over the skies of the popular Italian city Ariminum, the inhabitants were alarmed as they looked into the sky and witnessed 3 moons hovering over the entire city that remained fully lit even during the day. This event was so concerning that even popular historical scribes at the time, including Pliny in his 2nd volume titled Natural History, began recording the event and wrote that even during the night, the moon stayed in the sky and completely lit the city in light, and that the phenomenon was visible even throughout many different parts of the country. There are many mainstream historians that work to discount the event as a natural atmospheric phenomenon that had apparently began bending the light of the moon and making it appear as if there were multiple celestial bodies, and that this is a natural explanation for the sighting and the strange occurrence. This explanation, however, would not explain the fact that Pliny would also give the accounts of the stars staying in their natural position, and that the other moons were covering up other stars, as if the light of the stars were not affected, and these new celestial bodies had formed without any change in the atmosphere, believing them to occupy physical space and being much closer and artificially lit compared to the original moon. The Glowing Pithos. It is common for people to make metaphors of objects to help better explain them to those that would not understand the situation. One such metaphor of an unidentified flying object seems so specific in detail that it is hard for historians to ignore the facts of the sighting. As the army of Rome made its way to battle against King Mithridates VI, both sides of the battle witnessed an event so terrifying that it was recorded immediately and fighting had ceased. The sighting took place in 74 BC and was recorded by one of the most popular historical scribes of the time, known as Plutarch. Plutarch stated that despite the weather and the environment being a perfectly clear day, the armies heard a loud boom that stretches across the sky and a flash of bright lights appeared. From the light appeared a large body that landed between the two armies and appeared to be wrapped in fire. The fire was not described as an ordinary fire, but rather of that of the colour of a molten piece of metal that would glow brightly, and the body of the landed craft appeared to be the shape of that of a large wine jar. The sighting led to both of the armies retreating and the events of that day being changed forever. Norse Dwarfs. Norse mythologies and practices have been common across many different lands and cultures and have slowly been distorted in the modern era by mainstream media, as well as popular movies and video games taking artistic liberties of the ancient mythologies. What many do not realise, however, is that the dwarves of the Norse mythology are anything but similar to that of those depicted in popular franchises such as Lord of the Rings. In fact, carvings of the Norse dwarves show small humanoid beings with large rounded heads, small limbs, large eyes, and tiny mouths. Interestingly enough, the lore of the Norse mythologies describe these dwarves as being excellent craftsmen, capable of creating new and powerful technologies that were used by the gods. One of these famous technologies was the large hammer wielded by Thor, the god of thunder, that was said to have been forged under the immense pressure of a dying star to create new materials so strong and powerful that they allowed the god to be seen as a symbol of strength. How is it that the Norse, an ancient people, could have ever possibly known that stars were where metals had formed and that there was massive pressures inside the core of a star, or even a being that possessed the ability to travel through space and perform such a feat? These technologies, along with the carvings of the dwarves, have led many to believe that they are in fact similar to that of modern alien sightings of small, grey extraterrestrials. The Punic Wars. The Punic Wars were a pivotal moment in history, filled with strange stories and even more mysterious claims. One such claim appeared to be that of sightings of many different unidentified flying objects for several years as the wars raged. In 218 BC, there were many reports from historical scribes, personal documents, and soldiers speaking about ships that were glowing in the sky appearing to come out of the clouds. In fact, many similar sightings continued for the next 17 years, as others wrote that similar sightings of gleaming round shields were seen travelling through the air. A quote that sounds eerily similar to that of a modern UFO sighting. Given the evidence and written accounts by many credible historical sources, it's hard to refute such accurate claims and events from ever having occurred. Be sure to share your questions and answers in the comments section below, and let us know what you think of these ancient sightings. Thank you for watching and helping us to solve these unexplained mysteries.